Is the JBL Tour Pro 2 just a one-trick pony with its display on the case? Does it make any sense at all, and is it worth that hefty price tag? Let's have a real conversation. Goedendag, we're DHRME. Do hire real mechanical engineers. Could be useful. That display. Okay, let's talk about it since it's so up in your face. We really think this is JBL throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And props to them for doing that. Who knows what kind of innovation comes out of it. The only buds we've seen so far which included a display in the case was the Tozo X1 with a battery indicator. And we loved it.
The display on the Tour Pro 2 goes a bit further than just battery levels. What does it do? It essentially gives you a light version of the app, but on the case. And if you allow it, it will mirror some of your notifications from your phone. It does, however, not have LTE, so it will need your phone to do that. You can, however, answer calls from the case, which is kinda cool, if you can't find your phone for the time being. Those notifications, once shown, will disappear and you cannot find them back anymore. There's no notification shade. It's like a really shitty limited smartwatch which only runs the JBL app on it and nothing else. It's not the whole app either. The display has a little swipe to unlock the display so you won't have accidental touches. The JBL app is pretty damn extensive. It almost feels like Sony's app. So although the display on the case feels like a light version, it still enables you to do quite a bit beyond just seeing the battery life, some track controls and volume. Although you set up your custom EQs in the app, you can use the case to cycle through presets and custom EQs. You can also cycle through ANC modes on the case, but if you want to manually change the amount of ANC, you'll need the app again. Another reason you might use the app is to toggle between spatial audio modes, and if you plan on gaming and need low latency.
There are a few settings which in our opinion are really a set it and forget it. Like voice aware, which is a hear through setting. How much of your own voice you want to hear, or auto pause if you want music to automatically pause when you take them out of your ears. And you can also enable and adjust the silent now mode. JBL is really trying to coin a lot of terms here. It's like a do not disturb mode which disconnects Bluetooth and turns on ANC for a specific amount of time. Super handy if you really need a moment to disconnect from the world and from Bluetooth. But really, most people barely use the ANC feature. You've got to be really nerding out on your earbuds to use this mode. You also get a few settings which relate to the display case itself. You can change the brightness, select from a few preset lock screen wallpapers, and turn on or off notifications. And finally, you've got some utility features like setting a timer, a Find Your Buds function, and a flashlight. So that's everything you can do with that tiny display. Pretty impressive, right? But how did it translate in our everyday lives?
To be fair, it was barely used. It was much easier to wake our phones for track controls or volume without even unlocking the phone. The gestures on the buds were easy enough to toggle between ANC modes. If the charging case was usually in our pockets, notifications were checked on our phones or smartwatches. But we can imagine a world where this is useful, like having the case next to our keyboard at our desk. It offered some use if the phone was in our pocket. The set it and forget it features were exactly that. The hear through mode or auto pause were never looked at after setting it up. And setting a timer or using a flashlight was easier on the phone in some sense, and also using a voice assistant on the phone. Besides it being easier, it was also faster than swiping through many screens on a small display before you landed on the one you needed. The configuration options for the timer are quite limited on the case, and the flashlight isn't all too bright compared to the one on your smartphone. Where we did think it was kind of useful is to quickly change between EQ presets depending on the kind of content we were listening to at the time. Music with vocals, or a podcast, or hip hop. And the same goes for folks who might be into gaming. You could dive into the app to change it, or swipe a few times on the app to enable it there.
There's an additional situation where the smart case comes in very handy. You know, except showing it off to your friends. Suppose you don't plan to use these buds with a smartphone. Then you've also got no access to the app. For example, you use them with your computer or heck a TV. Then it's kind of clutch to be able to switch EQ or spatial audio depending on the content you're consuming. But again, are these few use cases worth a display on your case, in your case? That's for you to decide. Enough about the display though. The JBL Tour Pro 2 is more than just a pretty screen, right? Right?
The ANC on these buds are top tier, guys. We were blown away by the overall package of the JBL Live Pro 2 in this video, and the Tour Pro 2 matches up. We tested the noise cancelling against the AirPods Pro Gen 2, which is tier S for ANC, and against the EarFun Air Pro 3, which we ranked as tier A. The Tour Pro 2 came in at tier A. It's got killer low-end noise cancellation and did a great job at other frequencies too. You can either set the ANC level manually or you get adaptive ANC, which will change automatically based on your environment. Anyway, moving on to transparency. This is where the JBL didn't do as well as with the ANC. Tier B here, guys. It's got decent transparency, but it's not all that spectacular. There is noticeable white noise, which can get annoying in quiet environments. And comparing it to the EarFun Air Pro 3, which is tier A, the JBL was beat across the board. Not by much, but just enough to warrant a tier difference. This puts the JBL in the same tier as something like the SoundCore Liberty 4, which some of you might know was one of our favorite buds of last year. Oh, and you can change the level of noise cancelling in the app with a slider if you're into that kind of thing.
In the category of ANC, JBL has a third mode called Talk Through, which you can enable from the case or by double tapping the left bud, if you have those controls configured in the app. In theory, it's a nice feature since it lowers the audio volume and turns on transparency mode so you can talk to people. Did we ever toggle the mode? Nope. Practically, you'd be too slow to find that option on the case, and double tapping the left bud instead of just pulling out in time and not making the whole interaction more awkward than it already is. We always say, when in doubt, pull out. The way the Tour Pro 2 is built seems very good. Although the case and buds are made with plastic, they feel durable and definitely not cheap. That's the least you can come to expect at this price point. Let's not beat around the case. It's a bulky case. It needs to house that screen in it, so it will be bigger and heavier than others. But surprisingly, it didn't bother us too much. We kind of got used to it quite quickly. Maybe since we've seen the likes of Bose QC earbuds and the Moondrop Alice. Although the case is chunky, it slightly makes up for it with great battery life. With ANC on, you're getting 8 hours on the buds and 24 hours more from the case. That is pretty good, especially for what you're getting on the buds themselves. You've also got wireless charging on board.
After popping open the case, the buds are surprisingly compact, not what you'd expect with the chunky case. It's a stem style design and looks quite sleek. We like how they look. One nitpick is the way you take the buds out and put them into the case. It isn't the most natural feeling and feels a bit finicky. You get touch controls on the buds which you can customize in the app, although you do need to select from a few preset options. Unfortunately, you can't have track control, volume and an ANC toggle on at the same time. You'll need to forego one of them. That's a real shame. The buds are IPX5, which is okay, no dust resistance and no IP rating on the case itself, only on the buds. So take your precautions in case you're planning on showing off this fancy piece of tech off at the beach. But apart from all that superficial stuff, the buds were comfortable. The oval ear tips felt good without any irritation. Only downside is that you get only 3 sizes of tips, so finding the right fit might be a bit of a gamble if you're one of those in-between sizes. Strange choice, even Apple gives you 4 sizes now. Apple! It takes great courage to add an extra small tip size to the box. The fit felt secure as well and didn't think it would fall out during workouts very easily.
In the connectivity department, the Tour Pro 2 can do multipoint, and it worked well. But the best part is that you can pull connection from a previously paired device without having to put the buds into pairing mode. Unfortunately, there's no device list in the app. Speaking of the app, like we said at the beginning, JBL has gone all out on this app. Feature overload. Beyond the basics, an EQ, changing ANC modes, and firmware upgrades, you get several other options. Get ready for some JBL lingo. Here we go. There's Personify 2.0. Hi-Fi, Personify, get it? Which will try to make a custom EQ based on your preferences. Then you've got Adaptive ANC, which will change ANC level depending on the environment you're in. This we really liked, worked well. There's Voice Aware, which will adjust how much of your own voice you'd like to hear when on a phone call. Depending on how much you like the sound of your voice, this can be changed. Super handy for calls.
And then you've got Silent Now, which we talked about before. A do not disturb mode which will disconnect the buds from your phone and enable ANC. Like, if you just want to concentrate on work or go to sleep without having any audio playing. Finally, you can cycle between a few spatial audio modes depending on whether you're gaming, watching videos, or listening to music. And there's way too many other settings to talk about. A fit check, change of voice prompt language, Find My Buds and settings for the app on your case, on the app in your phone. Okay, we're done here.
Oh, by the way, did you guys hear about the popping popsicles, icing icicles, and testing?
JBL Tour Pro 2, JBL Live Pro 2 noisy conditions,
Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro.
Pop Pop Popsicle, Ice Ice Icicle,
Testing.
1, 2, 3, Pop Pop Popsicle,
Ice, icicle.
test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Windy conditions, Pop Pop Popsicle, Ice Ice Icicle,
Testing.
1, 2, 3.
Would you use the Tour Pro 2 for phone calls? Well, first off, if you have these buds in your ears, the JBL lady person says incoming call, which is kind of nice. No cryptic beeps or dings here. On the microphone quality, our take is simple. They did okay. Not great, but not bad either. In noisy conditions, Rowan's voice was loud and clear, although you could hear the cars whooshing by in the background. Moving to windy conditions, the wind is very much present, but you could still make out what Rowan was trying to say most of the time. We just think the other person on the call wouldn't enjoy hearing all that wind being piped in. Let's talk about the Fakman controls. We were super stoked to see that you get the ability to mute straight from the buds. You can also use the voice aware feature in the app and on the case display to change how much of your beautiful voice you'd like to hear. One downside is that there's no way to configure the touch controls for calls. JBL knows best. The case also behaves differently when you're on a call. First off, you can answer or hang up the calls using the case. And for the rest of it, only the features for calls will be available. So being able to hang up, mute, change volume, change ANC, and voice aware. Unfortunately, volume control does not work on the call even if you enable it. And since there's voice aware, there's no ANC control directly from the buds when on a call.
This is JBL, and in true JBL style, JBL delivers on sound. Sure, it's got AC and no fancy high-res codec, but we take excellent tuning and capable hardware any day over codecs that drain your battery. And these sound great. With a 10-point EQ that can move between frequency bands, you get full customization. It does everything well across the board: stock tuning, timbre, mids. It also gives you a nice bass rumble, maybe a tiny bit less than the Live Pro 2, but still plenty of bass, especially mid bass. Without any EQ, you still get a good, slightly bass boosted sound. But we also really like the presets. We found ourselves gravitating towards the studio preset mainly, which is kind of flat, and to the club preset, which is identical but with a bass bump. Perfect for when we wanted more punch. The bass preset isn't really our thing, although the other day when I went to the gym and I was sweating and my heart was beating a lot, I found that the bass preset helped me more than the studio presets, so there's that. Again, good presets are so underrated, and we're happy that JBL gives you presets that are actually valuable. You also get spatial audio on board. Not just spatial audio, but 3 types of spatial audio. One for movies, one for music, and one for gaming. Now, to be honest, spatial audio feels to us like what 3D was supposed to be to television. You know, companies sold you 3D TVs, but who actually uses and owns one today? Sure, there are use cases where it's cool when, you know, the mixes are mastered well, etc. But by and large, we would say don't fall for the hype. Don't buy earbuds for spatial audio. Anyway, you get spatial audio if you're into that sort of thing.
There's a maximum volume limiter that limits the maximum volume to 85 decibels, which we immediately enable to keep our ears healthy and keep this YouTube channel running. So yeah, in terms of sound, we haven't really seen anything that is as feature-packed as these. Well done, JBL. Well done.
All right, let's bring this tour to an end. Here are the reasons why you should buy the JBL Tour Pro 2. Great sound, Tier A noise cancelling, well implemented multi-point, including the ability to pull connections, comfortable and secure fitting earbuds, battery life of 8 hours on the buds with ANC on, the very reliable and feature-rich app, decent microphones with volume and mute on device.
Then the reasons not to buy the JBL Tour Pro 2. The price, $250, is a steep ask, especially considering the alternatives for much less. The case display, it's fun and very unique, but unless your needs fall into a specific group, you'll just be walking around with an unnecessarily chunky case and a lighter wallet. The transparency mode, Tier B, so it's alright but not anything to write home about. The low end isn't let in as much as we'd like, and there's noticeable white noise. And there are sacrifices to be made when customizing the call controls, and you can forget about customizing the controls for calls.
You've been on a pro tour of this JBL.
And we've been DHRME. Namaste.